You're listening to Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast for and by Rockies fans on Rocky Mountain Rooftop. Thank you for joining us as we discuss all things baseball and Colorado Rockies. Hello and welcome to Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast on Rocky Mountain Rooftop, a proud affiliate of the Fans First Sports Network. I'm your host, Evan Lang, and with me, as always, some days he will dine on a tree frog. It's Skyler Timmons.
Oh. Do you believe love can bloom on a battlefield, Evan?
That's the wrong person. You gotta do it in the pathetic... Snake! Do you believe that love can bloom, even on the battlefield?
Otacon.
Why are you such a loser, Otacon?
It's less like one of my Japanese animes.
Japanese animes. Yeah, but we can all agree Otacon's at least better than Huey.
I don't even know who that is.
Yeah. This is, who are the Patriots, Skyler?
They're a football team in New England.
Lolly lule low.
Which one of us is liquid when which one of us is solid?
Oh, I got all the recessive genes, and you got all the dominant genes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm British for some reason that I forget how they established. Brother!
Let's keep rolling. About as confusing as the Metal Gear Solid plot lines.
Pacing just as good, too, with MGS4 and its 14 hours of cutscenes.
Yeah. As we go through this, Evan, you're going to say something, and then I'm just going to repeat it back to you.
But honestly, it's not a terrible conversation technique with a stranger because it's like, all right, I am listening. I have taken in what you have said. I am indicating that I want you to tell me more about this. So you're like, oh, it's the Colorado Rockies. The Colorado Rockies? Well, yeah, they're the onward and so forth and so on.
Rockies.
The king of second bananas. Anyway. Metal Gear Solid Delta just came out, and so that's pretty cool. But today we will not be dining on tree frogs and putting on our face paint and camouflage. We're going to be talking Colorado Rockies baseball. And Skyler, to start, I think we're going to start with talking about some guys who are interesting potential parts of the 2026 campaign for the Colorado Rockies. And the guy who I think is getting the most attention right now is starting pitcher Tanner Gordon, who over his last few starts has been really solid. After, a tough start to the season, he's strung together a bunch of really good starts against pretty good competition. Today, the day that we are recording this, Tanner Gordon had a season and career high 9 strikeouts in a 6-inning quality start against the Cubs, gave up just 2 earned runs. Those 9 strikeouts are the most strikeouts by a Rockies starting pitcher, not only this season, but since last July.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's been good. No, nice and solid, and he's taken advantage and built on what we saw from him last year, which his main thing was throwing strikes. The dude throws strikes. That has always been the case for him. Command, for the most part, he can nibble a little bit. For the most part, he pounds the zone. But that got him into a lot of trouble last year because so many strikes can be a bad thing too, Evan, because they get hit. If you don't have good quality strikes, you're not throwing your spots, hitting your spots, you're going to run into trouble, and that's what happened to Gordon last year. And it still happens to him this year. No, but at times, as we've seen him with the big league club, he's settled in. And especially this month in August, aside from that shellacking he took against the Arizona Diamondbacks, where he really got beat up. Other than that, outside of that, and like his first start of the month against Toronto, those first teams, these last 3 starts, pretty dang solid, which is awesome. And then the one against the Cubs today. So his last 4 starts, excellent stuff, where he faced the Diamondbacks at Coors Field. Did pretty well there. Faced the Dodgers at Coors Field, did awesome there. Went on the road against Houston, did awesome there. And then faced a potent Cubs lineup, did awesome there at home. So he's shown those flashes, especially as of late.
Yeah, and right now I think he's the team leader in quality starts. I need to double check that, but right now he's got 5 quality starts. He's got 3 in a row, and some of these, his first real one was all the way back in May against the New York Yankees, where he had a really solid start. He had 5 strikeouts and gave up just 2 earned runs in 6 innings, but that's all really culminated in his last 4 games, going back to the home game against Arizona, where he pitched 5 innings, gave up only three earned runs, and he's since strung that along into 3 straight quality starts, and really looking impressive. And he pounds the strike zone, but he's got to make sure that he's mixing up his pitches when he's got effective command of his changeup and his other pitches in addition to his fastball, because fastball is not that great. And I think you can say that about a lot of Rockies pitchers right now, is their fastball is just okay. And he's really reliant on having all of his breaking pitches work and location. And when he is locating well, when he is getting the job done, there is so much to like about Tanner Gordon. And this has honestly been, and it's going to be through the rest of the month of September here. He's got a couple more starts in him before the season is over. His, I would say, audition to be part of the opening day rotation next season. Because the Rockies rotation for 2026 is full of question marks right now. Antonio Senzatela officially moved to the bullpen. Austin Gomber is gone. The future of Herman Marquez is very unclear. And you need guys, especially in this tail end of the season, to be putting their best on display for the team to show, I am going to be a key part of next year's team. And that's what Tanner Gordon is doing right now.
Yeah, because it's the only lock is Kyle Freeland. If even then, if maybe something happens in the offseason, they trade him. I doubt it, but he's likely here, and he's the only for sure. Okay, you can pencil in Kyle Freeland, probably your opening day starter, type of thing. Beyond that, no, it gets a little hairier, and we mentioned that before. And so, Ryan Feltner probably if he's healthy, but even then, now that's up in the air. That whole rotation is up in the air. So. No, a good opportunity for Gordon, and he's taken hold of it now of, okay, I've got a regular spot. I am in the big league rotation. I'm learning on the fly, and he's adapting. And he's getting better, and you'd like to see more strikeouts. But, on average, he doesn't strike out a ton. That's why today, against the Cubs, he was doing that thing of, he was pitching, not just throwing. He was throwing good quality strikes. He was painting the corners on some of those fastballs, and that's what you need. Ultimately, for me, he's given up a lot of hits. That's probably the big thing, is we have to learn how to miss more bats and not play with fire as much. But hey, it's a good audition, like you said, and I'd pencil him into that rotation right now. No, as of right now. So, yeah, good on him.
Yeah, the big issues, and a lot of this right now, even for his StatCast data, is skewed based on some of the really difficult starts that he's had. That 10-run start against Arizona, the 7-run start against Detroit, the 7-run start against Toronto. He's had some difficult ones, and it skewed his numbers. He's sitting at a 6.44 ERA coming into today's game. That's not counting the start against the Cubs. But his under-the-hood numbers, he's got a FIP of 455 coming in today's game, is much more representative of how he's pitching. And if you look at some of his numbers, his K rates, his whiff rates, his chase rates, not great. And a lot of that is because he lives so much in the strike zone. And if you look at his heat maps, there's a whole bunch of that red in the strike zone, which is good because it means he locates well, he's not wild. But it relies so heavily on, like we said, he's got to place his pitches well, and he's really only got right now 2 other pitches, his slider and his changeup, outside of that fastball. He has a curveball, he's only thrown it about 6 times this season. And that's something that I'd like to see more of, is Gordon continuing to develop that pitching arsenal. I'd like to see him maybe try out some new stuff through the rest of this season, because I mean, let's be real, the rest of the season is totally meaningless.
Yeah.
But what we have seen so far, there's a lot to like, and especially against tough opponents, where this series against the Cubs has been pretty brutal, where the starting pitching has been smacked around a lot. And for Gordon to come in today and hold them to just 2 runs through 6 innings is big, especially when the Rockies were on another skid. They had lost 4 in a row. They've got such a tough schedule for the rest of this season where, I mean, the goal is still avoid the worst loss record of the modern era, which they need now 3 more wins to do so. But, you know, with the toughness of the schedule and the level of the opponents that we had left, and when we were on that 4-game skid, and I came into today wholly expecting that we were going to lose and it would be 5 games, that I'd be lying if I had said I wasn't sweating a little bit of it's still not impossible for us to set the record. But if guys like Tanner Gordon can come in and do their job and do it well, then you find yourself sweating way less.
Yeah, when you can have a guy like a Tanner Gordon step in and rise to the occasion, pitch up to the competition and not, pitching down. So he's faced some tough teams, but Arizona's, they're no pushover, especially when they play the Rockies. And we know what the Dodgers can do, even how decimated they've been with their everything. And then Houston, who's been on a hot streak. The Cubs have been on a hot streak. Way back in May with the Yankees. A guy that can step up and show no fear against the big teams in baseball, the hot teams in baseball. He struggled against the Toronto Blue Jays, but that was just a perfect storm because the Blue Jays were just on fire at that point. But no, it's a guy that is rising to the occasion, and that's what you want as a starter, a guy who pitches with guts. And that's what I've seen out of him, especially this year now at Coors Field in these last couple of starts, where he's taking care of business. And at home at Coors Field in his 6 starts, he has and not counting today, on Sunday, came into Sunday with a 4.78 ERA in 6 starts at Coors Field this season. It's not too shabby, Evan. Considering one of those was like a 10-11 run outing. You take that out, it's probably better.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you look at the number on its face and go, well, that's probably not that good. And then you think about the context and go, okay, actually, you know what? That'll do.
Yeah. And I like that he's drawing comparisons from the guys in the broadcast booth and whatnot, but he's taking on that kind of persona of what Josh Fogg was in 2007 with the Rockies when he became the Dragon Slayer, especially during that September run where he's facing these all-stars and he's out pitching them on the other end. Facing the Cubs, Matthew Boyd, who's had a phenomenal year for the Cubs, Tanner Gordon out-pitched him. And the offense picked him up and he held them in check. Shohei Ohtani, who's he's on the rebound, but whatever, but out-pitched him. And so it's fun to see him put up these numbers and pitching with his hair on fire.
Yeah, especially when a lot of the other starting pitching stuff right now for the Rockies is kind of teetering on the edge, where, the other starting pitcher that the Rockies picked up at that trade deadline, Bradley Blaylock, or was Blaylock the year before? They were the same year. Tanner Gordon and Bradley Blaylock were the same year, right?
They both debuted last year.
They both debuted last year. But, Bradley Blaylock has really struggled, and he's had a couple good starts out there on the big league squad, but, both in AAA Albuquerque and here on the big league squad, he's largely struggled. Erman's future is a gigantic question mark right now, and he got wrecked by the Cubs. It was his first game coming off the injured list, but it was a beatdown. It was rough. He had a bad day. And for, Tanner Gordon, who's not exactly this highly touted prospect, he's 27 years old from the University of Indiana, received via trade, to come out and say, hey, maybe I can be a part of this, at least for now, is exactly what you're wanting to see, especially when, as I already said, you're playing largely for pride at this point, pride in auditions, but you want to see players taking that seriously of, yes, we're in the home stretch. There's about a month left in the season to go. There's under a month left. And the majority of these games are meaningless. And we know that the guys aren't going to go out there and just, go through the motions, because that's not how most baseball players are wired. They're competitors. They want to win. But you can tell when a guy is working extra hard to sort of make his mark. And Tanner Gordon is one of those guys.
Yeah. He's done everything. And, hey, you need Tanner Gordons in a rotation. A 4 or 5 guy like him, there's definitely a place on this team for that next year. And he's going to be in the depth conversation, because it's audition time. So good on him. He's doing good stuff.
Yeah. Love to see that from Tanner Gordon. And another guy who we need to start thinking about where they fit for 2026 is Mickey Moniak, the other hero of today's game, who hit a walk-off triple. The first walk-off triple for the Rockies since Brandon Barnes in 2014. But Mickey's been another kind of critical part of this 2025 Rockies team, where it was really sort of unexpected, because, when we signed Mickey at the beginning of the season, we've already gone through this a lot before, but we basically said he is younger Sam Hilliard.
Mm-hmm.
And that's still not necessarily untrue, but especially at home, Mickey Moniak has been pretty much everything the Rockies have needed him to be.
Minus a outstanding Gold Glove outfielder.
You can say that for a lot of players on this Rockies team this year. And I will say that Mickey's defense needs work. It's not nearly as bad as Tyler Freeman, who... Oh, those numbers are brutal. Where Tyler Freeman is like negative 1 point something wins above replacement, almost exclusively because his defense is terrible. And Mickey is a lot better than that. But it's one of those things where for both of those guys, I want to see them put through outfielder boot camp with Brenton Doyle over the offseason and get their gloves in order. But for Mickey, the big thing has been the bat, and especially at home. He's got some pretty harsh home road splits, but at home he's hitting 302, 343, 594, 11 home runs, 5 triples, 13 doubles, 38 ribbies, and 3 stolen bases to 1 caught stealing, which isn't huge, but it's something in that he's got the speed to be a threat on the base paths if necessary, but that's not really a huge part of his game. And the big thing is, he's got 18 home runs this season, which is one of the team leads in that regard. Honestly, his bat has been much more like what we expected the bat of Jordan Beck to be like this year.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's the thing where when also he had those opportunities to step in as a starter, was Brenton Doyle was struggling. Then Brenton Doyle took off, and now Mickey's kind of settled back into a platoon-type situation where he's kind of cycling through. Those 2 corner outfield positions have now become the rotation out there. But yeah, he's taken every opportunity, and I think it's been nice for him, kind of a boost that the Rockies wanted him, and he's had that relationship with the team in the past. And for him to just step in, he's comfortable here in Colorado. I know that he seemed to enjoy it. He's got that career high in home runs. Now, essentially a career year in Colorado. And it's mostly because I think he settled into the role he knew he needed to play, which is he doesn't have to try to play up to be the 1-1 overall pick on the Rockies. No, this isn't the Phillies. This isn't under the spotlight of the struggling Angels who make this trade and they acquire him and he has that good year and then just kind of falls off. But there's no, in the best way for him, there's no pressure for him in Colorado. I think sometimes that's just what a guy needs, especially a guy of his pedigree who's, people consider, he's a bust. He's a bust of a 1-1 prospect and everything. He's settled in nicely to the environment and just, he's playing loose. Yeah, he'd probably want him he'd rather be on a contender, but I think he's settled in. That goes a long way in helping a guy. And he loves hitting at Coors Field.
Yeah. And he's had a great attitude. He's been very available and open. He seems to have become very close with his teammates. He's a lot of fun to watch, honestly. And in a year where the Rockies are terrible, fun is generally in short supply. And he's been fun. I've really enjoyed having him here. And I've said it before, I like being proven wrong. And he's proven me wrong in terms of what my thoughts were when the Rockies brought him in.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where I do think that in 2026, there's not necessarily room for both him and Tyler Freeman to be corner outfielders, especially when you've got guys who we'll talk about later, like Sterling Thompson, knocking on the door to the big leagues, and you've got to find a place for them to play.
Yeah.
But, I can totally see the Rockies wanting to, especially when he's got additional years of team control still, and he's only just turned 27 recently.
Yeah.
That you can maybe want to keep him and evaluate what his place could be for the future on this team. And I'm at the point where I'm totally fine to have him on this team next year.
Yeah, because team control, arbitration, probably not going to cost too much. And yeah, it's fine to keep, I think, Mickey, because, Evan, as we've seen this year, the outfield isn't all shored up the way we thought it was going to be. Where, yeah, Jordan Beck, he hasn't been a slouch, but he's also just not doing what you expected him to. And then, Yanquiel Fernandez, he's still trying to figure things out. And honestly, he's still not a great outfielder to me, defense-wise, because he's really big and slow, despite the cannon of the arm. And so there's so many guys to siphon through. Like, okay, what's Zach Veen's place on this team? Sterling Thompson, Cole Carrig coming up, all this stuff where it's okay. Maybe you keep Mickey around because he's a known commodity now. Of like, okay, here's a fourth outfielder guy that we can keep, that we can trust to be in the mix in that outfield. No, will he start every day? No, he doesn't have to. He could have needed. But they entered with him being the platoon guy, and that's kind of what they've stuck with, where he's now cycled in more and everything. So, yeah, perfectly fine if you want to keep him around. Just so it's one less question and less pressure on, we need Yanquiel now to do it. We need Tyler Freeman to do this, or Jordan Beck, all that. Give yourself a little bit more known commodity and less questions.
We need immediate results with somebody, which is something that, doesn't really work when you're the Rockies. We've gotten lucky a couple times, but, we can't. It's like when we had Zach Veen up earlier in the season, and we're like, we need immediate results from Zach Veen, and didn't get it. And, you can say the same for about, Brent Doyle at the plate when he started in his rookie year, and Jordan Beck of, all right, well, we need you, and we need immediate results, and we didn't get them, so now what?
Yeah.
And that's the thing for the Rockies is you got to let guys grow into it, and I think Mickey is a good example of that, honestly, of a guy who can grow into and find his role, find his rhythm.
Plus, you need more left-handed bats, and so you can just check one left-handed bat off your checklist.
This team has so few left-handed bats and so few left-handed pitchers, it's a little ridiculous. But those are the two big league guys we wanted to talk about. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, it's time to talk a little bit of minor league baseball. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Affected by Altitude with Evan and Skyler. And Skyler, we don't often talk about the farm system that much for the Colorado Rockies, but as we're nearing the end of the minor league baseball season, I'm watching Skyler put on a bandana and a hat. This is getting...
farmer hat.
Oh, because he's ready to be down on the farm.
Because we're talking about the farm and my big old straw hat.
Did you have this bit planned?
No.
This is the kind of quality content our listeners tune into.
It's true. My big old hat. It won't fit over the headphones.
For those of you who are listening to the audio only version, Skyler has put on a red bandana and pulled from nowhere a large straw hat.
There we go. Oh, it won't go on my head. There we go. That's as good as we're
But
getting.
because he is wearing headphones, it does not really fit.
No, not really.
But Skyler, the Rockies farm system is kind of a mixed bag. The whole organization is generally been ranked pretty low in terms of where they sit compared to other farm systems within Major League Baseball. We have discovered this year especially that the depth throughout the organization, the preparedness for the future is not nearly as good as we thought it was going to be at this point in the team's development. But that doesn't mean that there's not a whole lot of good stuff happening down on the farm, especially with the Fresno Grizzlies, the low A affiliate, who just clinched a playoff spot, and both of the high A Spokane Indians and double A Hartford Yard Goats are still in the running with about a week, 2 weeks left in their own respective seasons. And so we thought, today might be a good day to go through and take a quick look at what some of these affiliates are doing so far this season. The players that have been a lot of fun to watch and where they found success and what they need to improve on.
Yeah, no, and so we were thinking there's not a whole lot else to talk about the big league club. They are what they are, and so let's talk about the farm system because we haven't really done that much this year. Because there's a lot of exciting stuff down there, a lot of good names, and the big league team may be bad, but a lot of these minor league teams in the system do pretty well. Down in the Arizona Complex League, down in the Dominican leagues, they always do well, and then up in the more affiliated ball, so to speak, the full season teams, there's a lot of good talent there as well, and success, which I think is always really important. Because as we've talked to Kyle Karros, we've talked to Gabriel Hughes, Charlie Condon.
Yeah, it's something that multiple people that we've spoken with here on this show have mentioned. Kyle Karros especially, like you said, brought it up that in the lower levels of the farm system, high A and low A and double A, winning is an expectation for these teams. And so to come up to triple A and the Colorado Rockies, where winning is not necessarily happening, it's their goal to try and bring that same expectation to the higher levels.
Yeah, that's what you need. And, I definitely didn't lose electricity while we were recording, so continuity continues, Evan. But it's like we were saying, it's just that winning culture and the system. You need that in the minors. And that's something the Rockies have put an emphasis on over the years. We need to win more in the minors. And so give these guys chances to play winning baseball. Give them chances to experience that and know what it takes to win. Get that feeling so then it carries up through the system. And there'll be guys we talk about when we get to those systems, but we'll probably focus on the two lower level systems here roundabout. But championships. Spokane had one last year. Fresno's been in the playoff hunt. They clinched another one this year. So it can be nothing but good for those young players.
Yeah. And, nobody would have known that you had lost electricity thanks to the magic of editing until you brought it up.
And also my hat magically popped back on my head.
Oh, had you taken off the hat? I hadn't noticed.
Yes, I had.
But, no, we had the Rockies Arizona Complex League team has been regularly in the playoffs, not necessarily winning the championships, but regularly making those postseason pushes, having good records. Same for their Dominican Summer League team. Both of those teams made the playoffs this year. And right now, the low A Fresno Grizzlies have clinched. High A Spokane still has a shot, despite some of the scuffles that they've had. They've been on a little bit of a tear recently and still have a chance. And even double A Hartford, who's been on a little bit of a skid recently, especially in this series against Portland that they've been playing over this last week, they still have a shot to make the postseason. And that's the kind of thing that in the upper levels of the organization in Albuquerque, in Colorado, you're not really playing meaningful baseball in late August and early September versus you are in the Rockies farm system.
Yeah. Absolutely. But should we go ahead and just dive into talking about people, Evan, down in Fresno?
Yeah, we'll start with the Low A Fresno Grizzlies, who didn't have that great a start to start the season. They spent most of the season below 500 until just a couple weeks ago. And they've had guys doing really well throughout the season, but they really started to hit a good stride when they got reinforcements per the draft and for the end of the Arizona Complex League. And I think I'd be remiss if I didn't start talking about my favorite player right now in Fresno. My favorite position player is 18-year-old middle infielder and center fielder Roldy Brito. Brito was the Arizona Complex League MVP, and for very good reason. He was very, very good in Arizona. He hit 368, 445, 555 in 51 games down at the complex. 3 home runs. He's not exactly a power hitter, but 13 doubles, 6 triples, and 22 stolen bases. He also had a very healthy walk to strikeout ratio, 42 strikeouts to 22 walks. And for Brito, what's really been impressive is that he immediately hit the ground running when he got to Fresno. There was no break for him where Complex League ended, he goes to Fresno and is immediately a key contributor on that team, where so far in 28 games in Fresno, Brito's hitting 381, 453, 442. He's got 5 doubles and a triple. He's already stolen 13 bases and a very, very good strikeout to walk ratio, 13 walks to 20 strikeouts. And he's the youngest guy on the team. He's younger than Ethan Holiday. And he's going to show that his first time stateside, because he was okay in the Dominican Summer League last year. He wasn't exactly, I would say, anything that you would really write home about after a solid DSL season, but he really exploded onto the scene with a strong performance in the Complex League, and now an even stronger one in Fresno.
Yeah. Hey, Rockies always have no shortage of random middle infielders coming up through the system. And it's just a matter of who's going to hit and stick around for longer than that, because it's always weird because the clock starts a little sooner on him, where maybe in a couple of years, so that he's a Rule 5 pick, in that minor league system.
Yeah, it's tough because so many of these speeding, slap hitting middle infielders, guys like Dion Jorge and stuff like that, they kind of reach their apex when they get to Double A.
Yeah,
and we've seen that, and we'll talk about it with Jorge, where he's really starting to slide down on the prospect rankings after people have been very, very high on him. But it's sort of the opposite with Brito, because unlike other very big name international free agent signings, guys like Jorge, guys like Ashley Andahar, Ezekiel Tovar, he really wasn't on a ton of people's radars until just now. And that, I think, makes him really intriguing, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what he does. Honestly, I think he could start next season in Spokane.
Yeah. Yeah, you keep it rolling here, you probably could. There's a dang Amazon ad that's getting in front of my Fresno stats here, but probably one of the more notable names that has made the round, Evan, probably down is Robert Calaz, down in Fresno. Not hitting for as much power this year, 9 home runs in 95 games. He's hitting 254, 328, 385. He's got 51 ribbies, 106 strikeouts, 34 walks. So kind of fits in that mold of here's this power hitting youngster. And you hope he can tap into that more after putting up 12 home runs last year in the minors between the Complex League, where he had 10, and then just 2 in Fresno when he got called up. But no, that's a guy that can get, when he's hot, he is hot, and seen as one of those premier power hitting outfielders, corner outfielders for the Rockies in the future.
Yeah, big thing for Calaz for me is throughout the rest of this season, what little is there is left, and next season especially, because he's also still very young. He's just 19 years old. He needs to stay healthy and get that consistency, because that's been a big thing for him. He's been injured a
Yeah.
couple times already this season and last season, and that's in part contributed to some of the inconsistency that he's had. Because like you said, when he's on it, and he is really good and a really fun prospect to watch. This season, honestly, kind of a disappointment in terms of the expectations for him, but that doesn't mean he's automatically a bust or anything like that. It's more of,
Yeah.
all right, well, next season then is we would really like to see some more from you. And I think that's reasonable for, a guy who is ranked so highly in the organizational prospect rankings. He's considered a top 10 prospect for the Rockies right now, and you can see why. He's got a good power bat. He's decently quick. He's a pretty toolsy player.
Yeah.
And I really like Robert Klaas. I am maybe a little less high on him than a lot of other people are, but I'd still probably put him in my top 10 in terms of prospect rankings.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of like potential there, especially with him. So it's a lot of putting your future projections on him and whatnot.
Let's see. I put him in my personal mid-season prospect rankings. These are for over at Purple Row with the Perps voting for mid-season. I put Kalaz at number 4.
Mm-hmm. I think, what is he, like top 5 for MLB Pipeline?
Yeah, he's good. And there's a lot of, this is kind of the problem with the Rockies, is that it's once again a very bottom-heavy prospect class in terms of we just reloaded via the draft and Arizona Complex League and a lot of these young guys, and some of the depth at the higher levels has been tested and proved to be wanting, but you've got guys like Kalaz, you've got guys like Roldy Brito, and then for High A Fresno especially right now, two names that have really been impressive this year, but both dealt with some injuries and some limited workloads in pitching, is friends of the show Jackson Cox and Brody Brecht. Brody Brecht has, when he's been on the field, really dialed it in, especially in terms of his control, where he's not giving up as many walks, but he's still really flashing his strong strikeout stuff. And for Jackson Cox, it's really been bouncing back from Tommy John surgery, which he had, in the 2023 season, leading into 2024, and this has been his first real season back. And these are both guys the Rockies have been very cautious with, maybe a little too cautious. I mean, I would argue that you probably could have seen both of these guys in Spokane already, but they've tried to limit their innings, limit their workloads, and just focus on having them back, having them healthy, and having them showcase their best stuff. And when we talked to them very early in the season, they were both coming off kind of a bumpy start, like Fresno as a whole, where their first few starts for the season hadn't gone quite as planned, but two guys who have really, really dialed it in terms of how well they have done on the mound, especially in terms of strikeouts. Jackson Cox right now, 22 starts, is rocking a 3.53 ERA, and where's Brody Brecht here on my list? There he is. Brody Brecht in 15 starts with a 2.58 ERA and 82 strikeouts. Jackson Cox has 86 strikeouts in 79 innings, and Brecht has 82 in 52 and 1/3.
Yeah, and Brecht now at, that's just in Fresno itself. But one thing I'd like to see from Brody more is, and like you said, it's probably like innings limits and stuff, where he's only throwing 3 to 4 innings most nights when he starts. So I'd just like to see him continue to get stretched out. He's had a couple of 5-inning outings recently, went 4 2/3 scoreless in his last outing. I just like to see him lengthen that leash a little more. Let him see what he can do over a little bit longer stretch. Get him in that 5-6 innings, hopefully, before season's out. But like you're saying, probably limiting that workload. It is his first professional season, full season as a starting pitcher and whatnot. So, yeah, he's really dialed it in. I'd like to see what he can do more over lengthier starts.
Yeah, and for Brecht, we are seeing that happen. It's just a shame that the season is so close to being over because, the Grizzlies finished off their final homestand here at today, time of recording. They have one away series, and then it's playoffs time, and then the season's done. And for Brody right now, he's only got 5 starts of 4 innings or longer. but three of those are all coming here within the last month, here in the month of August. And, his last start, which was just a couple days ago, he went 4 2/3. And then his prior two, he's got 2 5-inning starts each. But his 4 2/3 start against the Inland Empire 66ers, that's the Angels low A affiliate, was a beautiful one where, he threw 81 pitches, so not super efficient, but not terrible, and struck out 8 batters without giving up a run, earned or otherwise. And for Jackson Cox, it's been largely the same, where they've usually been holding him to 5 innings. It's been a pretty hard cap. They've even shut him down a couple times this season in terms of load management, in terms of inning management, because they are being so cautious with his surgically repaired arm. But it's the same thing where in the last month or so, they're letting him start to build back up. In his most recent start against Inland Empire, he went 5 2/3, which was his longest start of the season.
There you go. Yeah, but there's a lot of interesting names down there in Fresno, and we won't touch on them all because we got plenty of others to talk about. But Marcos Herrera's had a good year. Everett Catlett, had a good year in Fresno, and I believe he also had gotten moved up. Tons of guys like that were, a lot of pitching wise, guys have been just moved up in the system because hey, they're doing well in Fresno. Let's move them up to Spokane. So you get that mixed variety, and that's just the nature of pitching with with the minor leagues. But yeah, Jackson Cox, Brody Breck, good stuff on them. Hopefully good building steps, I think, for them as they move forward into next year.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to watch the Grizzlies. Very worthwhile, honestly, to watch them for the next week or more as the low A season draws to an end, just because they are the most heavily loaded when it comes to 2025 draft picks. Mm-hmm. Ethan Holiday, Tanner Thatch were both immediately assigned to low A Fresno after the draft, after their, what do you call it? Like the orientation. League. Yeah, instructionals and orientation down in Arizona, and they've been joined by Seth Clausen, by Matt Klein, and one of the undrafted guys, Jacob Humphrey. So they've got the most in terms of that talent. And if you haven't been watching the Grizzlies, no better time than the present to dial it in and start watching them, because they've been a lot of fun recently, and they're going to the playoffs.
Yeah. And good for Ethan Holiday. We'll probably touch on him. I'll mention him real quick before we move on. Adjusting. We'll say that. 231 average, 333 on base, 269 slugging. He's got an RBI. He's got a couple of doubles. He's got 12 hits right now, but 23 strikeouts, 7 walks. He's an 18-year-old kid out of high school learning. He looks comfortable against. Yeah. He's not intimidated by this, professional pitching and whatnot. He's looks comfortable there, and that's really all you can ask for. We're adjusting.
The big thing with Ethan Holiday, especially compared to guys like Roldy Brito, they're both 18, is that Brito's now been playing in the Rockies organization for a couple months. He's had a much longer lead up playing in the Arizona Complex League and now in Fresno. And Holiday, who is also 18, just got here and has only played high school ball.
Yeah, Roldy Brito has had his vision of basically being a quote-unquote professional baseball player since he was 16 or 17.
It's a big adjustment.
Down in the Dominican.
And it's a tough adjustment. And the best thing you can say about Ethan Holiday is, he's not lighting the world on fire immediately as an 18-year-old high school prospect out of high school. But like you said, he looks comfortable. He looks like this is not too much for him, and it will be a good way for him to develop.
Mm-hmm.
Love these guys. Fresno is great, and shout out to the folks down in Fresno, because they've been pretty good to us as well. But there's something special about the end of the season for minor league baseball, especially as they go into the playoffs. It's so much fun. And I'm just thinking about all the guys that we have talked to throughout this season, from Fresno, from Spokane, who we'll talk about in a minute, that how far they've come. And it's awesome to see, like we mentioned with Brody Brecht and Jackson Cox, of just what they've been through since we interviewed them back in April.
Mm-hmm.
But that's going to be it for Low A Fresno. Why don't we take a really quick break, because that went a little bit longer than expected. And when we get back, we'll talk a little bit about the Spokane Indians. So hang tight, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Affected by Altitude with Evan and Skyler. We're talking minor league baseball down on the farm with farmhand Skyler.
Howdy.
Howdy indeed. And Skyler, the next group of folks to talk about is going to be your defending Northwest League champion, 2025 Spokane Indians. And the Indians have not had as good a season as expected from them. And a lot of that is because a lot of their best players from last year are no longer with the Spokane Indians because they were their best players last year.
Yeah,
that's always going to be the tough part of minor league baseball, is that if your best players are really good, they're not going to be here next year.
Yeah, so
we saw that with...
I was going to say, this conversation probably kind of morphs into a Yard Goats discussion very quickly. So that saves us on some time.
Yeah, where, Kyle Karros, Jared Thomas, a bunch of guys are just not there anymore. Charlie Condon and a lot of the pitching staff, they've all moved up. But the Indians are still technically in it. Right now they are below 500, but they are still within shooting distance for a playoff spot, and they've got a lot of really talented guys on their roster. And right now, probably the two guys that are most important on that pitching staff are guys that the Rockies just recently received via trade from the New York Yankees in exchange for one Mr. Ryan McMahon. And that's Josh Gross and Griffin Herring. And Griffin Herring especially has been excellent since arriving in Spokane. He went from one coast to the other and didn't really miss a beat. He's had some really, really fantastic starts since joining the Spokane Indians. He's already got 39 strikeouts. Over 25 innings of work in 6 games, given up just 6 earned runs, walked 13 batters. He's been great, and he also has not given up a home run, which it is tougher to hit a home run out there in the Pacific Northwest, but still worth noting.
Indeed. Yeah, and looking at that pitching staff in general, you've got a notable name like Michael Persecki, who's out there and has had a pretty solid year with Spokane. Stu Fleslin, the reliever, he's been looking good.
Reliever turned starter. He is now officially a starter.
Hey.
He started the season as in the bullpen and just was going longer and longer. And about halfway through the season, he ended up becoming a starter. And since they moved him into that rotational role, Stu Fleslin has been so good. He's one of my boys down there, where he has just been a ton of fun to watch develop.
Yeah, and hey, you need that. That's good. McCade Brown, who I don't know, had some time there, now all of a sudden, got moved up to Double-A, was doing well there. Now he's in the Rockies rotation for the foreseeable rest of the season. That's good to see for him. LeBaron Johnson, not awful between his time in Fresno and in Spokane, solid enough numbers and everything. And then I think probably if I had to point out one that's kind of a notable one down there with Spokane, Cade Denton out of the bullpen is a big one. He's 7 for 10 with save opportunities down there, but a good solid year for him down there in Spokane, of a guy who, here's a key reliever in the near future.
Yeah, one of my other guys outside of Denton, who's been just a key member, has been Everett Catlett. We mentioned him very briefly when we were talking about Fresno. He got promoted and has been pitching very, very well since his promotion. I have him nicknamed as Big Cat 2 or Large Cat because he is 6'7". He's a tall guy, but he's been really, really good as well. LeBaron Johnson Jr. is a bummer for me because he was really starting to round into form before a hip injury took him out of action. He's still on the injured list. It is unclear to me whether he's going to return this season, but he's been such an important part, drafted at the University of Texas, sort of that new University of Texas to Colorado Rockies pipeline that's forming. But the overall, the pitching staff for Spokane has been a ton of fun to watch this year.
Yeah, and sort of looks like a lot of notable outings, a lot of notable guys that you can see how pieces fit into make an effective pitching staff, which is always nice to hear in a Rocky system, Evan.
Yeah, and it's going to be a challenge. Like they've got their work cut out for them, both for the rest of the season, but for when they eventually get up to Hartford, and if they ever go to AAA, because it's such a huge step. But it's nice to see that we've got guys who are performing in these lower two levels, and they do have some offense to back them up. Though the Indians' offense hasn't been as good this season as in previous years, they've got some pretty impressive names right now. And honestly, one of the guys who has been the most impressive is no longer with the team, and it's Charlie Condon, who was with Spokane last year, missed a bunch of time early in the season due to injury, came back, and ended up hitting 312, 431, 420 before being promoted up to AA. And, the rest of that team still has some really interesting players on it, but the two other really big names right now from the 2025 draft are Max Ballou and Ethan Hedges. Max Ballou started out really, really hot, has cooled off a little bit. It is a difficult place to hit, and this is, of course, the highest level of baseball he has ever played. And Ethan Hedges, the pick out of USC, has struggled a bit out of the gate to sort of find his rhythm, but for both of them, it's a very aggressive assignment to put them directly in high A. It shows that we want to challenge you, we want to see what you've got. It's what they did for Condon last season.
Yeah, they seem to do that with their experienced college players where, okay, you can skip over Fresno because that's kind of your quote-unquote rookie ball and stick them right up there. A lot of those, especially those higher draft pick guys.
Yeah, and for Ballou, what he has proven at the very least is that his power still plays very well. 4 home runs in 14 games to start his professional career. Some other interesting players up here include Aiden Longwell, who should probably be in Hartford by this point. Longwell is probably the best hitter on the Indians right now. He's hitting 284, 355, 485. He's leads the team in home runs with 15 and in ribbies with 80. But they have just chosen to keep him in Spokane probably for the rest of the season. And other guys include Skyler Messenger and Braylon Wimmer, Blake Wright. Jared Thomas played there for 73 games and hit very well before being promoted to AA Hartford. While Thomas was with the Indians, he hit with a 922 OPS and 11 home runs. And one of the better catching prospects in the organization right now in Cole Messina, also down in Spokane and having a pretty solid season right now with 7 homers and 42 ribbies.
Yeah, a lot of fun names. Shout out to Aiden Longwell, who is pretty much I would say the truest, just all-around first baseman in the system. No, there's Michael Tolia, who defensively is probably the top first baseman, but all around, as dedicated first basemen go, Aiden Longwell's probably top of that depth chart.
Yeah, he is. Honestly, he is probably the closest that the Rockies organization has right now to a true first baseman prospect, because first base is essentially all he's played.
Yeah.
He made 1 start in right field for Spokane this year and played 5 innings. But pretty much every other time he's been on the field, it's been either as a DH or as a first baseman. And even going back to college, he was a player for Kent State, he was a first baseman and also a pitcher, interestingly enough.
Interesting.
And not a bad pitcher. In his final season with Kent State, he had a 1.45 ERA in 5 appearances.
Good for him.
And 25 strikeouts.
Good for him.
Bring back the two-way play. Let Aiden Longwell pitch.
I think I'd asked him about that one. He's like, no, I'm sticking to hitting.
I'm good. Thank you,
yeah,
though.
I'm good. let's keep this train rolling, Evan.
Yeah, we'll bump right along to the Double-A Hartford Yard Goats. Yard Goats, also like the Indians, on a bit of a skid. They've sort of got their doors kicked in by the Portland Sea Dogs over the last week, but still over 500 and still in the hunt for a playoff spot after last season. They made the playoffs as a Rockies affiliate and as a team for the first time as the Hartford Yard Goats. And this year, they've been one of the best overall teams in terms of the Rockies farm system. Offense can be a little all over the place because it is a very hitter-unfriendly environment out there in Hartford. It's a pitcher's park up at Duncan, and it's a sea-level park. The ball's not flying as far, but they've got some pretty interesting guys on their roster, and most of them are guys we've already talked about. Jared Thomas and Charlie Condon are the two, I would say, best position players there in Spokane. And for Condon especially, he's really started to find his rhythm, his power, where, he wasn't really hitting a lot of home runs for most of the season, but now has 8 since being promoted to Hartford. And he's really starting to find his groove. Jared Thomas also has had a very, very good season since joining Hartford, but right now is in a little bit of a slump, which is not necessarily to be unexpected. Like, guys are going to slump at some point. And you can say the same of Cole Carrig, who for most of the season has hit pretty well, but is in a little bit of a slide right now. But it's also probably... Well, not probably. This is the most baseball in a season a lot of these guys have played up to this point. The seasons keep getting longer as you go on, and you're not going to be perfect for the entire season. And for all of these guys, what it really is for me is how they finish the season and where they end up next year. And I want the Rockies to be aggressive, where if they finish their season strong, I want Carrig, Thomas, and Condon all in Albuquerque next season. And I'm not talking at some point next season. I mean to start the season. Those are the guys where I want them to get that fast pass up to AAA for next year if they can finish out the season strong.
Yeah. And interesting because I'm talking about Condon because I think people have had so many worries about it. They had a lot of that sour taste in their mouth from last season when he gets to Spokane and struggles. No, and it's probably because he was playing hurt with his hand and whatnot, and then immediately he gets hurt at the start of this season in his first minor league game. And so, then he starts hitting, and I think we had even talked about, people were about, he's not hitting for power. Where's the power? Well, he was recovering from a wrist injury. That's take forever. It's finally feeling comfortable. He's probably feeling stronger in that hand now, and now we're seeing the power. Where he hit four homers in 3 games, type thing, and so he's finding that power. And I think it's interesting. It seems like he's kind of settled in. He is a first baseman, which is what we all wanted him to be anyway. Get rid of this outfield nonsense, or third base. He can play first base, and I don't think that takes away his value with the defensive versatility because the Rockies need somebody to play first base. There's way better options to be playing the outfield or third base. Condon can play first base. His bat can play there. And that's good. That's what you need.
And he's looked very good at first base. And I think that's partially because, he spent a lot of time in college and in the lower levels of the Rockies organization, playing outfield, playing first base. And now third base, pardon me. Now he is playing a lot more first base, which is still an incredibly important position. Like, I'm never going to say, first base is where you stick your worst defender. This isn't, rec league softball. But what it is it is a less physically demanding defensive position for the most part, which I also think is good because Charlie Condon's primary tool is his bat more than anything else. He is a very advanced hitting prospect. And I think first base is the perfect spot for him because he is defensively sound enough to play a good first base.
Yeah, it's like he's not a slouch defensively like at those other positions, but the weaknesses were clear where he's not the fastest kid on the team. Like there's guys who are faster, and better suited for the outfield, like a Cole Carrick, a Jared Thomas. It was like when Jared Thomas could be a first. No, he's better off being an outfielder because he just fits that defensively better. And so I think the Rockies kind of coming to that conclusion of like, oh, Condon can just be mostly a first baseman.
Yeah, and it really is. There are just so many other, like, more defensively better third baseman and left field prospects in the system. Like Jared Thomas is a very good left fielder, and Cole Carrick can play center and can play corner. And for third base right now, you've got the Rockies just drafted Ethan Hedges, and they've got Kyle Karros up on the big league team right now, both of whom are known for their very good third base defense. And so you need a place for Condon to play. And first base and DH is probably going to be that spot. But it's really nice to see a lot of these guys. Another guy who did really well while he was down with Hartford was friend of the show Braden Ward, as well as Kyle Karros, who started the season in Double-A. And that's been another reason of why I think the Yard Goats have been skidding a little bit more, is they've lost a couple players to the big leagues now. They lost Kyle Karros, who was one of their best players. They lost McCade Brown, who was one of their best pitchers. But the Yard Goats still have a lot of really, really good pitchers, including probably the best reliever in the Rockies system right now, which is Mr. Wellington Herrera, who his ERA right now is 2.90 in Hartford. But before he got up to Hartford, when he was in Spokane, he had a 0.49 ERA in 15 relief appearances. He played in the Futures game. He played in the Spring Breakout Prospect Showcase. He's got killer strikeout stuff. He's got 63 strikeouts in 40 innings of work with Hartford. And they've used him in a couple different ways. They've used him as a closer. They've used him as a multi-inning guy, which is much more recent, and I do not like that at all. Wellington is a closer. He's got closer stuff, and that's what they should be focusing on. I do not like them trying to make him a multi-inning guy. But they're also trying to get through the rest of their season, so I get that. But Wellington Herrera, he is one of my guys.
The beef is cooking. Where's the beef? That's what
He's in Hartford.
Oh, problem solved. The quick, also probably worth mentioning, Connor Eaton, who just recently got called up to Double-A Hartford in his home debut. I think it was like his second start, but his home debut for the Yard Goats, punched out 12 batters in the first 5 innings.
Yeah, and even then, like, his first start for Hartford was really good too. But to punch out 12 in your home debut is really awesome. And then the real head turner of the pitching staff is going to be Sean Sullivan, who has just been incredible for the Yard Goats. He missed a little bit of time at the start of the season, recovering from off-season hip surgery. He missed a little bit of time later in the season with another injury, has recently returned, but in 16 starts, he's got a 2.51 ERA, 92 strikeouts. He is what the Rockies love in left-handed pitchers, and while they are behind the times in that, Sean Sullivan is probably the best example of being the best at what the Rockies like out of their left-handed pitchers. Very, very slow fastball. Nothing super. His fastball is based on deception and movement, not about velocity. Whereas a lot of other lefties right now, it's all about being a hard tossing lefty, getting that high velo up. But he's got an exceptional arsenal of breaking pitches. He has great strikeout stuff. He's very deceptive. He's great. And it's going to be really interesting to see what they do with him, because I do not know how his stuff is going to play in Albuquerque or at the big league level, because another tricky lefty that they made his big league debut this year with, similar kinds of complaints of, the fastball velo is not that high, but he relies on deception in his breaking pitches at Carson Palmquist.
Extension.
And that did not go very well.
Nope.
But I would really like to see where Sean Sullivan is at the end of this season, because he is a candidate where if he has a nice, full, healthy offseason, can maybe get a tick or two up on his four-seam fastball with being healthy and getting the rest in, he could be making a run for a rotation spot in spring training next year.
Yeah, or get one early on at the start of the season. But yeah, one other thing I wanted to mention, Evan, with Charlie Condon, where I think it was Thomas Harden wrote about it, where the Rockies want him to pretty much stay and finish the season in Double-A with the Yard Goats because he's playing meaningful baseball in September there, or meaningful baseball there of trying to make a playoff push and whatnot. So they want him to stay there because he probably could get moved up to Albuquerque. But I like that. It's like we mentioned, they want to play that competitive winning baseball. Okay, stay in Hartford, finish out the year there, and help them.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Try and breach the playoffs, which I think is a good approach for him.
No, I agree totally. It's more of just that next season, I want them to start the season in Albuquerque. And last thing I'll say about Hartford, because we're running a little low on time, Cole Carrig needs to calm down a little bit because it seems like he's getting thrown out of games once or twice a week, where he's arguing strike calls, getting in the ump's face. He's a very hot-headed player, and he's very talented, and I love watching him play. But, this isn't the first time where the Rockies have had a prospect with, I guess you would put it as, maturity issues, where they need to grow up a little bit. And for Cole Carrig, that's big for me right now, is I need to see him grow up a little bit. I need to see him show some more maturity.
Hey, I'm not going to fault the hot-headed guy.
Oh, he's a blast to watch, and I love him to death. But you're a lot more help to your team when you're still on the field and haven't been sent back into the showers.
This is true. You can be hot-headed and energetic, but gotta learn how to temper that too. Don't turn and call the umpire a blankety blank. You mutter it under your breath as you walk away into the dugout.
You mutter it, you say some expletives, you maybe punch something in the clubhouse, then you go back on your way.
Never punch anything. Nobody punch anything.
What I think most
Don't be like that one pitcher that broke his hand and cost his team playoff stuff.
So what I legitimately think would be a good addition to multiple clubhouses is straight up a punching bag. Because you can work out your frustrations, but you're not being an idiot and punching something that's going to break your hand.
I just have that inflatable clown thing.
Sure.
So you can just wail on it. Because a punching bag, those are hard, Evan. And you really go up without a glove on, you're gonna bust that hand up.
Just give him something. Give him something to vent their frustrations out.
Worst guy on the team, you just go and you can slap him. Whack.
No, you need a member of the coaching staff to volunteer.
Have a fan volunteer.
I'd do it. Sign up today to get slapped by Cole Carrig.
Be the slap jockey for today's game. Brought to you by such and such. Whack.
Brought to you by Duncan. America runs on Duncan. Mm-hmm. Let him have it, Cole. And he just winds up. I'd watch it. I'd produce it. That'd be great YouTube content.
Mm-hmm.
But the last group we'll talk about here, and we'll try and keep this quick because we're probably going to end up running a little bit long today, is your 2025 Albuquerque Isotopes. Another tough season for the Topes. Like, let's be real. The Topes have not been good this year. They were not good last year. They've really not been good at all since becoming a Rockies affiliate. And I think not only is it because Albuquerque is a difficult place to play, it's one of the most hitter-friendly launch pads in a already very hitter-friendly PCL. But also, it says a lot about the Rockies' organizational depth and prospect development, which we've said time and time again is a problem.
Yeah, it's interesting with AAA because if the guys are doing well and playing well, you want them on the big league roster. And so it's it's always a weird blend because it's some prospects, and then some dudes who are, kind of big league outcasts, guys that are trying to make it back. These gritty veterans who are trying to find their way back. And so it's weird. It's a weird mix, but it hasn't worked out too well. There's been some good individual performances, but as a team, it has not worked out well.
Yeah. It's a brutal place to pitch. It's, the altitude is similar to playing in Colorado, which has both its ups and downs in terms of physical conditioning and performance. And like you said, it's tough because your AAA organization is going to have a mix of your journeyman veterans, your quadruple A players, two guys who have gotten in plenty of work for the Topes this year are guys like Owen Miller, Sam Hilliard, Austin Nola, guys who aren't really players that have been able to stick in big league teams. And for some of these guys, this is probably going to be their last stop with the Rockies. Sean Bouchard, who was designated for assignment earlier this year, this probably his last year with the organization. And that's a bummer because we love the guy, but that's just sort of how AAA shakes out. Yeah. But there's also a lot to celebrate in AAA. There's been a lot of guys who have really been putting together wonderful years. We mentioned him with Hartford, but Braden Ward has been doing really well since he got promoted to AAA, and that's to be commended. You've got Zach Veen, who's really figured it out, and he started off hot in AAA this year. Zach Veen got called up, cooled off immensely, struggled immensely, honestly looked like a completely different player once we sent him back down to AAA, to the point where they shut him down. They sent him to the Arizona Complex League to work in the performance lab. And since coming back from that, he looks much more like the player he did beforehand. And it's going to be really interesting to see, Skyler, we're on the eve of September call-ups. Those are happening tomorrow. To see who gets called up, because there are some guys who are going to be frontrunners. It's Veen, another guy who has been really putting it together, especially over the last month or so, is Drew Romo, who's missed a chunk of time at the beginning of the season with injury and has, he struggled a bit, especially at the plate to start the season. But over the last month or so, he's really been putting it together. But the top guy right now that I would be most interested to see is Sterling Thompson, who's having just an absolutely fantastic year in AAA. He's played 104 games. That's the most of any player on the Isotopes right now, while hitting 292, 390, 511. He's got 14 home runs, 54 ribbies, 8 triples, 25 doubles. That'll play. And he's played very solid outfield defense. He is knocking on the door, and it's why we mentioned earlier in the show when we were talking about guys like Mickey Moniak, Tyler Freeman, is he's the guy who they need to watch out for, who the Rockies may need to make room for, if not at the end of this season, then at the beginning of the next, because of how well he has been doing. Is at some point you got to give him his shake.
Yeah, and I think partly too what could help his case is that he it seemed initially they were going to start leaning into kind of a positional versatility type of guy for him, but then he's kind of evolved into, he's just an outfielder now, which I think, it's nice that they have a permanent spot for him, but with an outfield that's already so crowded, those outfielders do need a little bit more versatility, and who knows if he can bring that to the table, because the bat will play. It's how do you find room for him with all the other outfielders that don't have as much versatility either.
Yeah, it's tough because throughout his career, he has mostly been an outfielder.
Yeah.
But in college at Florida, he played all over the place. He played second base. He played third base. Here at the Rockies, he's played second. He's played third. He's played right and left field. He's played literally everywhere. And where the Rockies have really settled for him is left field. And that's tricky because we have so many outfielders. Who are other guys that could be playing left or right field? Zach Veen, Jordan Beck, Mickey Moniak, Tyler Freeman. You've got Yanquiel Fernandez for right field. And that just makes it even more tricky, like you said.
Convoluted. And it helps that, okay, yeah, he bats left-handed, so, okay, maybe then he settles into a platoon in left field with whoever's there, like a Jordan Beck or something. But then, then the short side of that platoon, it's usually the right-hander gets the short side of it. And, do you really need Jordan Beck being the one that has to do that? So it's a puzzle that they figure out. Because, yeah, Sterling Thompson has earned his spot. So then it's up to the Rockies. Figure out how you get him his spot.
Yeah. And then close things out. Really, the last thing we want to mention here, we've seen some interesting AAA performances this year. Duke and Darnell was really good in AAA this year before finally making his big league debut. He is unfortunately shut down for the rest of the season with a torn labrum in his hip, which will require surgery. Huge bummer, but a great, great story. And then, we'd be remiss to talk about, not to talk about Gabriel Hughes, who, it is really hard to pitch in AAA. And he's put together a 6.31 ERA in 10 starts. But you see flashes of the things that we really like out of him. He's another guy like Sullivan, where his fastball velocity is pretty low. And earlier in the year, I maybe would have clamored to get Gabriel Hughes up onto the big league roster for the end of the season. But right now, I am totally fine with maybe even shutting him down, because he has pitched a lot for a guy who, coming off of Tommy John, coming off of other injuries, and has been in some pretty tough pitching assignments, especially pitching in AAA, like we've said, is really difficult. Of making sure that he is healthy and ready to go for next season, where he can compete for one of those rotation spots, or just finishing the season out in Albuquerque and just finishing the season strong.
Yeah, and he had an interview with Thomas Harding newsletter, was another reporter that had contributed to it, where he's becoming a lot more cerebral. It's a lot more him learning how to pitch. Now, if you recall back when we talked to him in spring training, that was the conversation, where he's learning how to pitch. He's a very cerebral individual, very intellectual individual. And so I'm fine. I don't think you need to shut him down. He's healthy. He's got his clean bill of health. He can survive and whatnot. But, he's learning how to pitch, and that's good. And, yeah, if he can get like one start at the end of the season, if they feel, okay, we need somebody to start here, last game of the season here in the big league roster, let's give Gabriel that chance and just give him a good note to finish on type thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, honestly, I don't think you can really go wrong at this point with what you decide from him.
Yeah.
But it's tough, because he's had a long road to where he's at right now, and that's why I'm not necessarily trying to be overly cautious, because I've already complained a little bit about the Rockies being overly cautious with guys like Brody Brecht and Jackson Cox. But if there's anybody who's, I think, potentially earned an early start to their offseason to start some rest and relaxation, it's Gabriel Hughes. But no, he knows what he's doing, and he's worked very hard to get where he's at. And like you said, very cerebral, very intellectual guy, heck of a lot smarter than I am.
Yeah, that's a dude that reads philosophy books for fun. Like, meanwhile, we're making dumb Metal Gear Solid jokes at the start of our episode.
But Skyler, I hear it's amazing when the famous purple stuffed worm in Flapjaw Space with the tuning fork does a Rob Blink on Harakiri Rock. I need scissors. 61.
What? What? All right, let's close this out.
Metal Gear. Memes. Nanomachine. For those of you who are very confused, it's a Metal Gear Solid 2 reference.
Interesting.
But that's probably going to do it here for us on Affected by Altitude this week. Thank you so much for listening. Skyler, where can the folks find you at?
Find me over on Twitter at Skyler Timmons, or on Blue Sky at stimmons13.psky.social, and writing over at purplerow.com, Wednesday Rock Piles, and some stuff over at Fans First, sportsnetwork.com.
And you can find me at evanlang27.bsky.social over on Blue Sky. Would love to hear from you. Catch me on Purple Row doing the Monday Rock Piles and the weekly Pebble Reports, where if you want to know more about the Colorado Rockies farm system and minor league baseball, that's where you should head, because every week through the regular season, I am posting regular updates on our prospects and stories about guys in the Rockies farm system. I have a ton of fun writing them, and I hope people enjoy reading them. Remember that you can find Rocky Mountain Rooftop on all of your favorite podcasting platforms of choice. If it has podcasts, it's probably got us on it. That includes Apple Podcasts and Spotify and iHeartRadio and all that jazz. Catch the video version of the show on youtube.com. Remember that you can find Rocky Mountain Rooftop on all of your favorite social media platforms, including youtube.com at Rocky Mountain Rooftop. That's at ROCKYMTN Rooftop. That is going to do it here for us on a nice and long edition of Affected by Altitude. We appreciate you listening to us. We're in the final stretch for the regular season. We got a month to go. So keep sticking with us as we draw you through the rest of this very painful Rockies season and see where things end up. But once again, I'm Evan. That's Skyler. Thanks for listening. Skyler, hit him with it.
Enjoy the dust on the trail, my friends.
Tarnation. Consarn it.
This has been Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast with Rocky Mountain Rooftop, a proud affiliate of the Fans First Sports Network. Catch new episodes every Monday on wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Be sure to follow us on YouTube as well for video versions of the show.